On a warm June day in 1959, the Van Houlas took their 4 daughters to Norway Lake Park in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan for a day of fun. Their 3-year-old daughter, Carol, played happily in a large field of the park near a thick tree line. Around 6 p.m., Carol went missing. Within 1 hour, 500 people, helicopters, and search dogs were looking for Carol throughout the entire night. 13 hours later, around 7 a.m. the next day, 2 searchers heard a faint cry. Following the cry, they broke through thick underbrush a mile away from the lake and located Carol on a small dry spot in the center of an impassable swamp. 9 months earlier, 4-year-old Kenneth Scott also went missing from the Norway Lake area and was located 2 days later, deceased 15 miles away in higher elevation through the same thick forest and swampy terrain. How did Carol travel the 1 mile where she was found and end up on the only dry spot in the center of a deep swamp? How did she do it in the middle of the night with 500 people looking for her? How did Kenneth travel 15 miles in 2 days through the same terrain? Is it a coincidence that the 2 children went missing in the same area in a 9-month period and were found in places that would be impossible for them to get to by themselves? Douglas was on vacation with his extended family on their 13,000-acre private estate near Newcomb, New York. Douglas's relative was a wealthy banker who owned a large 3-story log cabin lodge on the edge of Newcomb Lake. On July 10, 1971, Douglas walked down the pathway leading away from the lodge to meet his uncle for a hike. Concerned about poison oak, his uncle sent him back to the lodge to change into long pants. On his way back, just a few feet from a small bridge, Douglas spoke with another group of kids enjoying the water at a small beach on the lake's edge. That was the last time anyone ever saw Douglas. The search for Douglas was huge, and no cost was spared to find him. In addition to hundreds of local volunteers, specialized search and rescue and multiple dog teams were flown in from all over the country. At one point, even the military joined the search. Many of the search dogs picked up Douglas's scent and tracked it straight through the woods for 15 miles to a nearby mountain called the High Peaks. The trail then continued for another 15 miles through the dense forest to the city of Lake Placid, where it ended after having gone around the city as if to avoid it. The searchers commented in news articles that the scent went through the roughest terrain they could imagine, and many of them made very little progress each day due to the undergrowth where the scent was located. After a lengthy search, not a trace of Douglas was ever found. Shortly after the search ended, the family sold the lodge and the land to the state of New York. It has since been turned into a state park that anyone can visit if you're willing to walk or bike the 5 miles to get there. Is it reasonable to assume that Douglas Legg just got lost on a trail back to the lodge and in a confused state made his way through 15 miles of dense forest directly to the top of a 5,000-foot mountain and then on again for another 15 miles off to Lake Placid, where he then walked around the city? It may also be easy to assume Douglas was the victim of a bear attack. However, when a bear attacks, there are signs of a struggle and a lot of noise. Bears do not grab people and walk 30 miles through the woods.